Welcome everyone to Visionary Psychics. I'm Sara Wiseman, and with us today is one of our Visionary Psychics, Jenna Beam. Jenna, welcome to the program. So I'm super excited to know and be aware of the work that Jenna's been doing, and to have her, especially in this series about spiritual intuition, because Jenna has these really pronounced field of study in acupuncture and ancient healing arts. And so it's very interesting to bring a person with that practice, that expertise into the field of intuition and see sort of how they relate to each other. If they do, if they don't, kind of just look at where the threads intertwine. So Jenna, I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how you came to your path of the ancient healing modalities, and then what other pieces that opened for you so that you came to study and be aware of intuition as another piece of that puzzle.
Sure. Am I unmuted? Okay.
Yes.
Hi.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you for having me. Migraines were my body's way of communicating with me, and I started around 17. So after about 4 years of just unsuccessful medical treatments, and I actually got really, really sick and ended up bedridden for 4 months. And after that, I actually met an acupuncturist who helped me understand that I could drain this excess down through my body and bring it back in, and all these different things with needles. And as well, he taught me that the questions or the answers I seek are not in books.
Right.
So he definitely got me started on just understanding there's so much more to this human experience than the tangible physical world. And I started meditating then.
So when you're 17 or at any age, 4 months is a very long period of time to be laid up or to be. It almost feels like that was a really big spiritual awakening time for you, like going through that piece.
And just to be clear, that didn't happen until I was 23. So
Okay. Yeah.
when I started the headaches. And then at 23, my body was just like, enough with the medication, enough with this. And it shut.
Yeah.
But yes, I actually had what felt like spiritual death, like where I remember sitting at the Seattle Center in the Key Arena listening to music, and I felt my spirit going up, and I was like, no. And I was in incredible pain at the time, and that was what it was, very like shocking that like it felt like I was so ungrounded that it was like if I didn't figure out how to connect with my spirit and stay here, I wasn't going to live.
Right. Like it was actually sort of leaving, and you had to decide, you had to make a decision as to what you were going to do. Yeah. Interesting. It's so interesting. It's like a spiritual death or a near death. These things that happen that the universe brings to us. Sometimes they seem like trauma or illness, and yet they always are like this door opening into like the bigger aspect of what we're here to do. How did so you became interested in the acupuncture from your own experience, and then you were like, I want to provide this to others? Is that sort of?
Yes. During those initial treatments, I started to see the potential of healing, and I asked so many questions that my acupuncturist a few times was like, stop being a student and just
Right.
be a patient.
Yeah.
I got obsessed with reading books, and I pretty quickly ended up going back to community college to get the prerequisites I needed to go to grad school. And I changed my entire life course in that time in 23.
Did you feel like when you were going through all this like deep infatuation with your new field of study, did you have the feeling like, I get this, or I know this, or I've always known this? Was that something that happened for you?
I would say quite the opposite.
Okay.
I feel like it's endlessly deep, that you can literally study and tune in forever, and there are always new depths.
Yeah.
And that's why I never stopped taking classes. I've been practicing for 13 years, and I still continue to learn. It's so vast.
But it's not like it's like, for some people it would be impossible to learn all the breadth of what you've learned. And for you, was like you were a natural at it already. Even if there was more to learn, it was like you just got it. You got the gist of it, and that allowed you to go further.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. She, so,
I just love it, honestly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Passion and curiosity have taken me far.
Yeah. So now you have a practice in Seattle, and you do quite a bit of different aspects of acupuncture. Tell us a little bit about what you offer.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the courses, sort of where your focus is and what you're most interested in right now.
Right. Well, the first type of intuition I think I cultivated was with my hands. While I was sick at that time, I started also getting craniosacral treatments and fell in love with that. So I got trained in craniosacral therapy while I was in acupuncture school.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got to work with the woman who did the training, and I stayed with her for a week during a spring break to try to immerse myself in that study. And I feel like I see with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece that once I learned that, everything clicked, was the balance method by Dr. Richard Tan. And now, since he passed, Dr. Sonia Tan, who's in Vancouver, she's fabulous. And putting those two systems together has
Mm-hmm.
been very incredible, because knowing how the fluid movement works in the body and how the chi system works, and then just getting out of your brain and into your hands and just feeling everything,
Mm-hmm.
is really fun and beneficial to others.
So tell me a little bit about when you're feeling with your hands, where are you? Or what,
I'm
how?
with my hands. Seriously, like I feel like I close my eyes and I
Mm-hmm.
can literally see 3D tension patterns with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I can be at the ankles and see up to the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I don't know. Patients ask me that all the time. And what I tell them I'm literally feeling is density, right? Like
Yeah.
you kind of tune in and squeeze that. I'm just kind of doing a feeling pattern. And then, what, I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
but it's physically density. It's not like it's magical to be able to tell where the points are. It's tangible, it's physical, and where it's going and how that's all interconnected. Yeah, seeing with hands.
Yeah, so you feel the density of the energy or the density of the actual physical matter of the body, or both?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see, like some people see auric fields or guides come in the room or other types of things happen? Do those, like, I know that you have this sense of knowing, also this intuitive knowing that comes in when you're in that state. What does that feel like for you?
Yes, for me, everything is very visual, and it really
Mm-hmm.
depends on the patient. Like some people come in and I don't even have to ask, like I can see a lot going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where the dichotomy is between what the patients are showing versus what I am seeing, because it
Mm-hmm.
does vary. And some people, I have to touch them to see. And some people I see, they're passed on relatives or friends, family in the room with us. Sometimes it's their spirit guide, sometimes mine. I tend not to tell them what I see. I'd rather ask them questions and then see what they're experiencing. So I use my intuition in acupuncture that way.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm using tapping and EFT tapping with a patient,
Mm-hmm.
then I let the intuition show up more precisely or
Yeah.
detailed.
So say we've got, um, say you're with the patient or the client, you already know where the energy or the meridian, or you have a sense of what the physical or energetic thing is,
Mhm.
and then a departed comes in. What is the way that you work with the departed? Like, what's your process?
Oh, well, again, I don't have a
Mhm.
process. It
Yeah.
really depends on the patient, especially if it's a patient I already have talked in a spiritual
Yes.
language with, then I might share with them. And a lot of times they are like, oh, I've been thinking about that person, or, something like that. Other times I just honor that departed and
Mhm.
don't say anything if it's not relevant. Like, or I ask the departed, do you want to be known? And if no, that's cool. Like,
Right. Yeah, it's like we don't always know what the presences are for. if a guide came in or another being that wasn't departed, do those beings ever participate in the healings with you?
Yes, and I'm very clear to keep uninvited
Yes.
energies out. Like I do a lot of space clearing and energy, and I have a whole process of like, no, get out. Like
Gong, gong, just like you're away. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So what have you seen or felt, like what would be an example of a healing that might have happened where a guide participated, if something
Oh,
comes to mind?
yeah. Well, I would say whether or not a guide comes, once the needles are in, I feel like something very sacred happens when I leave the room.
Yeah.
Like this rebalancing, it's really the person's higher wisdom or intuition or just their body's wisdom, because it's their brains don't have to be involved in any way. And in fact, the better if they fall asleep.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes a guide will come in as well and just facilitate that movement and that rebalancing or that unblocking or the shuffling or whatever is happening for that person. But yes, I think it's important to not be in the room to allow their space.
Right. So they can have the privacy, and even the guide may just come in possibly to just lift the whole vibrational field so that all of this
Right.
beautiful healing can happen.
And now I have a therapy dog, so she also grounds the space and she likes to lay right under the table.
Mm-hmm.
And she just comes in and puppy flops and like just exhales all of her tension and stress, kind of helping people. Like she models a way to just,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
very cute too.
That's really great. And I'm sure she's young now, but as she even matures, like her, she's working hard. Like she's working hard on the healing with everybody there.
Yeah.
Some of the things you do are some acupuncture for the face. Tell me about how that works and what that's all about.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've been really excited about because I'm working typically with women, although it's open to men, and I have had a few men come through. But it's usually people who are on that space where they really want to tune into themselves on a much, much deeper level. So they're asking for those kinds of things, like, and it's often around menopause or commonly around menopause.
Mm-hmm.
So hormones are something I'm incredibly passionate about because hormone balance is just such a big part of women's life experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an opportunity for this awakening into their higher selves. But what it literally does is clear the tension out of the face, which it does. But also the trauma, right? Life is hard, it can be
Mm-hmm.
messy. And it's such a relief because the body is a hologram, so that when you relieve it out of your face, you're actually helping throughout the whole body. And
Mm-hmm.
we do body points so that it's also the body points are supporting the deeper stuff going on. So you're not just looking better, you're actually like freer and more relaxed and joyful and happy in a way that's very authentic and organic.
Yeah, you're looking better because you've released trauma, you've released pain, you've released looping thoughts, you've relaxed everything. It's not, the physical isn't fixed cosmetically, it's the release that allows this joy or relaxation to come forward.
Right.
This idea, the body of the hologram, that is such a amazing way to think of things. Tell me how what that phrase means to you.
Ooh, I could go on for days on that, but simply everything that happens in the body is projected to your external self.
Mm-hmm.
So if you took, well, let's say if you took your hand, you can map your entire head on your hand, your neck on your wrist. And then we could use the same thing with your foot. Your foot can map the whole head. So headaches, for example, we do a cool pattern where some of the channels are yin, some of the channels are yang, and we create this circuit flow with one arm is yin, one arm is yang, the opposite leg is yin, the opposite leg is yang, and it just creates this cyclical flow.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps the headache, the excess energy of the head come back down through the rest of you, right? And it's literal, like, and then another mapping is to take the whole arm off or the whole leg off in theory and map it. Like you can do that along your whole head can map out, you can space it out to the length of your arm or the length where your elbow or your knee is the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a patient with MS who went blind in one eye because it was filled with white blood cells. And we put 3 needles on her inner knee and it cleared up. And we were both surprised. Like nobody thought, but it was
Yeah.
like, it's not just like in theory, it's
Right.
literally communicating.
It's literally, yeah, it absolutely, it's like the micro reflects the macro or vice versa. And, you know, you could take this theory of this body as the hologram or this piece as part of the whole. And that's also true of the bigger picture, you know,
Mhm.
us as part of the universe. And so it's a pretty interesting, and I would guess if you go even smaller,
The
it's in
fractal.
the cellular. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
And we
idea
can
of,
do the whole body as well. So anything going
yeah.
on in the internal system, we can use the same mapping, the arm or
Mhm.
the leg. And that's typically how it works. And then again, when we're releasing the face, again, that's having a systemic effect
Yeah.
throughout. And
Yeah.
yes, and it is. So it's a hollow fractalgram is one
Cool.
term.
Yeah.
Cool. All
So
scales. You can
yeah.
map the whole body on your pinky finger or on this bone of the pinky finger if you're that precise.
Mm-hmm. Just with needles?
Mhm.
Wow. Okay.
But again, you'd have to be real precise. And
Yes, you'd have to be very adroit. Definitely. Yeah. Um, so what we work on in this whole visionary psychics realm is we work on a lot of visions and guides and being departed, and also things like we do a lot of moving in and out through time, like going into past lives, going into future lives, being multidimensionally present at once. And I'm just curious, like when you're working on someone, do you, I have imagining that they do, but do you notice this like slipping into other dimensions or slipping into other time frames, or any of the, I'm sure you see visions for the person. What are things that you notice in terms of the intuitive realm playing into these
Mhm.
others? Because it's all related. It's just different parts, and so I'm just curious how they relate for you.
Right. Yes. And let's see how to answer that concisely. So sometimes again with the craniosacral, a whole past life or an energy of some sort will come up.
Yeah.
And so we'll start a dialogue about that. And another way, sometimes even in the intake when people are just, because sometimes people come in and they have all these things they want to share and they just kind of start, letting and
Yeah.
so taking that all in. And then sometimes I just sit there with my eyes closed for a second and see them separately from all their stuff.
The story. Yeah.
And when we get into those multiple dimensions, I think my favorite way to support them is to put the needles in and then do a guided meditation to
Mm-hmm.
help them ground, because often that feels important if they're all over the place. And
Yeah.
then we just kind of go through the chakras and we kind of call back energy or let go or just kind of do a little work playing
Mm-hmm.
around with that. And if it is necessary to talk about, I don't talk about past lives a ton because
Mm-hmm.
I think at least what I've had, my most powerful experience has been through your class when I did the guided meditation myself, and
Yeah.
I saw and felt, and I really was that past self. And it was, any other experience hasn't been as deep for me. So I don't try to put that on patients of my
Yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah. But it's like you're creating this when the needles go in and you leave the room, and also when you're there, but at that moment you're creating this portal for everyone to journey and explore and heal and retrieve parts of themselves that need to come back and release parts of themselves that don't need to be there. And
Right.
that's just
We
fascinating.
talk about soul contracts. In fact, this last week I worked with a patient who I've worked with for 12 years, I think. And yeah, she did a lot of, I kind of set up the container for her to break some contracts and stuff. And then when I came back in, we discussed and then made sure she's grounded,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the other thing. I also like to set the container to be complete in an hour, whatever they need that day. It's like they get it and then they're back. And so sometimes if I come in and I'm like, they don't feel quite back, it's like, okay, let's bring you back.
Bring you back. Yeah, absolutely. So, you do all of your work in person because it's acupuncture, but then I noticed you also have, and I'll provide all the details on where to find you below, but um, you also have a lot of some classes that you've started offering that have a, is there anything you want to mention on um, what those are for? It's almost like more support if people can't come in to see you in the physical form, if they don't live in Seattle or they just can't get in that day, they may have support from other pieces that you offer.
Yes, I actually took away my online just the virtual sessions today, actually.
Post-COVID, yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I did create, because again, hormones are a huge passion of mine, and I work a lot with fertility and menopause. So I
Yeah.
created a 6-week nutrition class, but it's so much more than nutrition. We go through, it's basically a crash course in Chinese medicine and how to use it in a lifestyle with all of the emotions that come up, with like tools to work with those emotions, and foods that support the body and the heart, the mind. And so that was really fun. And
Hmm.
they're full of images to help people intuitively connect to these things that are a little less common in our Western culture.
Yeah. When you were a child, did you understand the ability of your brain to take in all this information and utilize it? Did you know that you had this intellect or this ability to just take all these different systems and create this healing modality? Were there
I wasn't
hints?
into healing until I got my migraines, but
Uh-huh.
I still have all of my math and science notes where I would collage. Each chapter would be color coded, and so I'd have like the
Okay.
whole.
Yeah.
And when I was in the exam, I would always picture my notes. You know,
Mhm.
like my notes became sacred to me, but they were like a whole map of everything we learned that semester. And that was my way of like, if I didn't do that, I just didn't learn. And
Yeah.
I continued doing that. I now have, I don't even know how many notebooks. Here's one I have in front of me, like full of collages of
Yeah.
concepts, because
Yeah.
that seems to be the way my brain actually connects it.
Uh-huh. That's so funny. And I mean, it's just so interesting how we're given our soul contracts early on. And I'm just thinking, oh, I think I was making macrame keychains at that time, at that time myself. So we've been on different paths, but it's amazing. To, like, you're bringing so many healing traditions or healing modalities together, not just the ancient, but you're adding all these new things and creating something new. It's very pioneering. It's very interesting work that you're doing. So
Thank you. Well,
good.
physics was my first passion before
Hmm.
I became into or got into healing stuff.
Yeah,
Physics and astronomy.
nice. Well, I think we'll let you go now, but I want to, so I'll put all the information where people can find you if they want to do session work with you or whatever it is that they'd like to work with you on. But I just appreciate your time so much and so glad that you're to have you with us.
Thank you so
So,
much.
all right, thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Okay, bye.